Hello. Said 5 seconds to go. Anyway, I can't see chats at the moment because a good 3 minutes before the stream, because I'm organised, I fucking hate LastPass. LastPass, because I haven't streamed in a while, LastPass logged me out and I couldn't remember my master password because my brain's not working and I didn't have time. So I can't log in to Restream to check the chat, which means that I can only see them through the widget and hopefully that shows up. But if it doesn't, well, I can't see the chats. So sorry about that. Hang on. Just give me 1 second. And also, with the Restream widget, it's 50-50 on whether it works anyway. So I'm thinking about moving to StreamYard and just, not StreamYard, what you call it? The other one, the OBS clone that's got all of the multi-streaming stuff in it. I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, so anyway, fuck, my brain's just not working today. Give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second, okay? I don't think the chat's coming up. Give me 1 sec, okay? There will be a brief black screen. Okay. It may or may not work. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so oh, there we go. Okay, so we should be good for chats at least. So I should be able to see them over here. So anyway, not that there's a copious amount of them anyway, but you know, just in case. The best way for chats to work is on YouTube. I can't guarantee that the others will work. It's just so buggy. It's just ridiculous. So I'm going to try and find a better way other than Restream to get these things working. But yeah, so anyway, doesn't matter. So this is just a quick like, oh, Taya's not dead stream. Right. I've been really busy. Turns out that like final year law school is hard. Who knew? It takes a lot of time. It's quite demanding on your time and brain. Who knew that? I don't know. Everyone except me. But yes, it has been quite a lot of work. And I've just been tired, and also everything moves at like such a pace now that there's no point unless you're like full-time news and it's like, what kind of analysis can you possibly add? Because the second that you do anything, it's out of date. Like everything moves so fast that, you know, I'm just not set up to do that. Like it's just not, as I've said before, the first thing to go, it's just not financially feasible for me to be doing this. It's just, you know, so I show up, I've invested in the gear, it's sunk costs, we're here. We do what we can do. Okay. But I thought that I would, I am going to do I'm going to do more pre-recording, which I have been working on. And there's a great new tool because like a big part of like anyone who's been watching me for a long time knows that I never get around to editing clips. I'm an extremely busy person. I have like lots and lots of things to do. This is not what I do. It'd be nice if it was, but it's just the first thing to fall by the wayside as soon as like things that pay come up. I mean, that's just a human thing, right? You know, and I'm not going to do that thing where I pretend that, you know, you do things just for the love and it doesn't matter. It's like, well, no, it does matter. Like, you know, people have to pay their bills, and if it doesn't pay, then I don't do it. It's, you know, and that includes this. It doesn't matter how much you like it. Reality's got to like hit you at some point. So, you know, I do try to fit it in when I can. But editing takes days. Right, especially when you try to edit someone like me who waffles and talks shit and goes on tangents and stuff. I'm very difficult to edit, so I just prefer to let my streams just stand alone and let them be there. But there is a new. I have a big part of it has been, even though I'm familiar with like the Creative Suite and I, you know, can do various things. I've never really. I've never professionally worked with Premiere, and I need to upskill to the point where it's easier, right? So anyone who's learned Photoshop or anything like that understands that this type of stuff requires my muscle memory. Like if anything, my muscle memory is getting in the way of me properly learning Premiere to a point where it's an efficient workflow. And I'm too old for this shit. I'm not going to be learning new skills that don't actually, like I could be sitting there reading more case law or doing other things, right? Some people just move on with their lives. So anyway, there's a new tool called Descript. It's a little bit, it seems good. It's pretty, seems pretty good for what it is. I've decided to not, to just give up on Premiere for now and just stick with something like Descript, which will, you know, it won't be the greatest edit, but it won't be, none either, you know, like, so for that, so I am going to start doing a little bit more pre-recording and see how we go with that. But, you know, at the end of the day, being honest with you, people don't see the value in it and you don't make money doing it. You don't grow an audience doing it. I do it because I enjoy it. But then again, that's luxury stuff. You know, you got to do what pays and you got to do what actually, you got to be productive with your time, right? This is not a productive thing to do with my time, but that's okay. Like I've got so much writing that I could do. This is me writing with my face because I haven't had time to write either, but we'll get there. We'll get there in the end. So anyway, the WordPress stuff, right? So I did do a pre-record, really badly edited. I just gave up editing at the end. There comes a point where you make a video or you do something like that and like the time it takes me to edit, it's already out of date by the time you go to upload it. It's like, there's no point. So I just went, fuck it, stopped halfway through, didn't even bother, just put it up. It's like, okay. It's like, I've better shit to do than this. Anyway, so, but the WordPress stuff, it's still evolving, but at the end of the day, like, as much as people make it, the end of the world as we know it, like, everyone catastrophizes about everything all the time. At the end of the day, you got to keep a level head. If you're a consultant in tech, and especially if you're running an agency, you got to keep a level head and do what's best for your clients. Like, I don't even have many clients. Like, most of my clients now are sort of legacy from the agency that they sort of tick along. I run some updates. They pay a small fee. I run updates, and they're hosted. And they're hosted on WP Engine, right? But their needs are different. Like, some are on WooCommerce, which has a different a different setup than someone who's running a newsletter, or someone who I'm not necessarily selling new builds to, right? So those things, they're all different use cases. And anyone who's sort of acting like there's like, honestly, I think that if you are catastrophizing about this, I don't know how busy you are outside of WordPress. I haven't really thought this part through, but there are people who are all WordPress all the time, but most agencies are platform agnostic to begin with. I would hope so, at least, that most half decent digital agencies are platform agnostic and give their clients the best solution for the client's needs. Like, I wouldn't be shoehorning WordPress solutions. I would hope you're not doing this either, shoehorning WordPress solutions into a client because you only know WordPress and you believe in WordPress. That's not the right way to look at it anyway. So maybe it is a good opportunity for those that have done that to audit their own approach to business and to understand that you've got to and start thinking about your clients as well and what they need, not what you prefer. Now, the problem with the WordPress ecosystem is that, oh my gosh, I mean, I have a different view on it because I use as few plugins as possible. Like, the number of websites, when we were running the agency, the number of websites that we would inherit that were just an absolute, so poorly architected, and they were just installing plugins and plugins on plugins for everything, and they all had overlapping features, and fucking admin notices with upsells and everything everywhere. And it's like, that's not how a mature consultant or agency or provider or freelancer should approach these things, is just installing plugins. And I hope that I think with the WordPress thing, there's some valuable lessons to be learned about how you approach your business to begin with, which is to not rely too much on third parties as much as you can, and that every plugin that you add on to a content management system adds risk. It adds not only security risk, but it adds complexity. So I think that's the one thing that, and again, it's not unique to WordPress per se, but WordPress is really WordPress is its own unique. Let me think about my words here. WordPress is a funny old ecosystem. Like 2 years ago, I said to my husband, who's also, we used to run the agency together. He's a senior dev and still is. And I said, like, WordPress has become what Joomla turned into in its last, couple of years before WordPress sort of really took off as a CMS. Which is, and there's no real, the reason I'm hesitating is that there's no real way to say this without sounding racist, right? But it is, it's not intended that way. It is just a fact. It is just a fact of the business of sort of the Indian, Nepalese, offshore businesses that sort of glom on to open source and sort of bloat it with the most ridiculous features, all of that sort of stuff. And it's just, again, I'm trying to say it with a way, there's no real way to say it without it sounding, again, American companies do it too. Everyone does it, but it is a uniquely, it is something that I've experienced more with sort of offshore, right? I mean, technically I'm offshore from the US too. You understand what I'm saying? Fucking hell? I hate this because it's like, I don't want to be misunderstood. This is why I was like, no, you should pre-record this shit, because it's like, I want to talk about the fence sitting. It's moving on. There's a whole mindset. Okay. So if you've been around long enough, there is a history of, Western, Australian, American, UK exploiting Indian labor, Filipino labor, that sort of stuff, right? So I have always not done that. First of all, because of my politics, I don't believe in exploiting offshore labor for a start. But also the language gap, the cultural gap, all of those sorts of things, they really do affect your project, right? They do add risk to your project. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And so the things that you pay less for in terms of development, okay, you will often pay more in terms of risks. Project, if you're pricing your project right, it probably costs more, which is that, you've got communication breakdowns, again, the cultural differences, that sort of stuff. So when I'm saying like Indian, I mean, there's a specific cultural gap with project managing offshore Indian staff that is, anyone who's in the space knows, okay? But the problem is I'm putting this out as content, so I need to be more responsible with the way that I say it. But there is a cultural gap there, which is, in my experience as a project manager, okay, and trying, like obviously you'd have clients who push for offshore, which I wouldn't do because I think that it doesn't go well. And that is because of a cultural gap, which is with Indian developers. Again, generalizing, okay? Obviously that's not, I'm generalizing, I'm speaking in generalities here. But this sort of tendency to just say whatever I want to hear rather than say what the truth is. Okay, this whole like it would, a lot of my project management time would be repeating the spec 6, 7, 8 times to make sure, because in the meetings it would be yes, 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 yes. And I go, no, did you understand that? Yes, yes, yes. No, and then something would come back different. And I'd go, no, did you understand the brief? Yes, 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 yes. And that is a cultural thing, right? That, again, it's not, it is a cultural difference, which is it's frowned upon to sort of push back. There's a stronger hierarchy. I'm trying to find the words. I'm always stammering around this stuff because but it is those gaps, the inability to be direct and the inability to be honest and the inability to acknowledge these differences in terms of cross-cultural communication. I think people underestimate that stuff, right? And so for me, in my experience, and it's also my Australianness too, which is, Australians are the opposite of that. Americans are okay with bullshit because they just kick the can down the road. They spin a lie. Projects go wrong a lot because people won't just have a direct conversation and go, look, this is what I want. This is when I want it. Do you understand? And then we go, no, I don't understand. Okay, that's out of scope. Okay. Like we have more of a direct kind of thing versus people nod, 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 yes, yes, yes. That is how projects get delayed a lot. I know I wandered on a weird tangent and it's gone badly for me, but whatever, get used to it, whatever, it's a live stream. My point being that with this WordPress thing, what you would find is that there's a lot of massive early days, right? A lot of badly coded, overpriced, bloated plugins coming out of sort of these offshore things. So they would build these plugins, but then they'd build sort of these bloated plugins. But then they would sell them on. And it would be like you're trying to get a conversation. You're trying to talk to somebody. And it would just be, yes, 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 whatever you want, whatever you say. And that's the funny thing that I'm noticing at the moment with this whole WordPress thing is sort of the fence sitters coming out, right? And that's the thing, was like, oh no, everyone's got a point here. Well, no, it's not. And the sort of suck holing and the sort of fence sitting that's going on. And it's like, without trying to upset Matt Mullenweg, but also both sidesing an issue that is clearly just for them to sort of operating out of self-interest, not in the interest of the community, right? And that's where, you know, the plugin sort of, I'm not articulating my thoughts well. But there's a mindset with WordPress of as a marketplace. Like I watched this happen, which it went from being open source and sort of people just sort of contributing plugins that might be useful to, you know, the exact thing that, you know, ACF, that exact sort of premium model, which was the light plugin in the repo, but completely stripped of any features. And then selling you a $300 a year subscription for, you know, a set of functionality that would overlap with other plugins that were doing the same thing. And all of a sudden you end up with this sort of bloated thing, right? I'm not attributing it. Obviously, American companies do that too. They're not the same thing. I'm saying that coupled with that mindset of like making a quick buck, using offshore labor to program like really bad bloated plugins, misunderstanding the community because of a cultural gap. There's sort of a perfect storm here of resentment, right? Which was around people who were effectively gouging the open source community. It has undermined the WordPress project at large. That whole marketplace has been undermined, right? People just trying to make a quick buck, extract as much as they can out of agencies. Like, again, I never expected anything for free in terms of a plugin, but I'd also started to see this sort of gouging like going on, right? Where just from an agency point of view, it became too risky, too bloated, you know, all of these things, right? Too much hassle, expensive, right? To have basic functionality that you would want in your website, right? So it went from being, and that's why, you know, just code your own shit, basically. Like WordPress is still fine. If you're a good WordPress developer, there's not really a problem here, right? The only real problem is ACF. But, you know, like that'll be figured out, right? But in terms of the broader ecosystem, right, I think that just from an agency point of view, relying on all of these plugins is a bad idea anyway in terms of your architecture. And if you can't be coding a basic experience, like I'm not talking about complex experiences, right? I mean, I use the Jet Engine suite. I don't use ACF. I use the Jet Engine suite from Crocker-Block, right? That's my prefer. I've got a lifetime license for that. I prefer that, right? Like that provides like, you know, a lot of core functionality that would require a lot of code. But at the end of the day, plugins replace a lot of the ability to code. And if you can do most of this shit by just coding with hooks and actions and all that sort of stuff yourself. So, you know, maybe you can look at it as a time to be less dependent on plugins, re-architect the way that you do your business, and really consider whether you can, you should be able to code around it anyway. Like that's the thing. Like if you've got clients, like you should be able to make your own plugins that fill gaps. I am of the view that maybe you shouldn't be making money if you for a profit. I've seen so much garbage out there over the years. And that's why before I was like, oh, offshore shit. It's like, it's hard to explain it without it coming across as horribly racist, but it's just been my experience over the years, which is that combination of low quality, people expecting the earth for no money, and the gaps in communication result in really shitty code. Okay. And it's just really shitty jobs. And I think fewer people should be in the business. And maybe that's, and as enabling as something like WordPress has been, okay, and the great economy that's been built around it, and as great as open source is, I do think that WordPress's ecosystem has made people lazy over time. It has made people devalue the work that a web developer does. And, you know, the more I've been thinking about this, right, because, you know, you've got this whole Substack thing, where everyone just sort of defaults to going on Substack. Now, Substack has its benefits, which is discoverability. Okay, so if I want to write a newsletter and have a paywall and all that sort of stuff, it's just sort of it's in out of the box, right? Substack actually started as a believe it or not, started as a WordPress stack for subscriptions, a subscription stack, Substack. There you go. It actually started to be that stack on WordPress that would have the editor, blog, newsletter functionality out of the box, whereas on WordPress you have to kind of build that, right? Or assemble plugins. But Substack, you're kind of locked in. You're at the mercy of someone owning the platform. It's not your data. I mean, yes, you could technically export it, but it's not. You don't own it, right? Technically. Legally, yes. Okay, like again, it's just a hassle. Like there's no API. You can't just pull it from Substack. Like I can't even incorporate Substack into my workflow without a manual copy and paste of everything that I do. Right? There's no way to do that. And so Substack, but people just flock to that for some reason. I don't understand why. But again, that's one of those things that I've had to concede over the years that people really don't care about the things that I care about, which is owning your data, building a unique experience that keeps people coming back. Whereas Substack really represents the extreme of everything that I don't like, which was that everything became generic. Nobody values the development hours and the work that goes on behind the scenes. Everyone thinks that they're a developer when they're just really doing assembly of other people's code. And again, this comes from a place of me inheriting various websites, taking over projects, auditing other people's work for many, many years, that the state of the industry is shit to begin with. The quality is poor. Seniority is definitely not valued. Okay. People expect to pay, $200 for something that I would charge $20,000 for, because of, and people don't necessarily differentiate between those two things. Like I remember, we offered to help a friend out some years ago, and they had a WordPress website. It was a membership site. It was complex, but it hadn't been updated in 2 years, so all the plugins were crap. It was spaghetti code. It was everything all plugins, all the time, everything. It was an absolute, they had 3 different page builders in it. They had WP Bakery because the theme had its own builder. I think that was the bakery. And then it was a Divi one. And then they had another builder for like the slider, and then another builder for, it's like, oh my fucking God. And she paid like a few $1,000s for it at the time. And I looked at it and I was just like, I can't believe that someone charged you for this. It's it's just a disgrace. And unfortunately, that's the most, that's the problem of the WordPress ecosystem as it stands, is that people who actually build on top of WordPress and do it well and tend to not do so well in competition for $2,000 pieces of shit websites that are too slow, because they have like most agencies have no incentive to make the website faster because they just sell people faster hosting. It's like, unfortunately, that's the state of the industry at the moment. So as much as I talk about and glamorize this whole WordPress thing as like WordPress was marvelous and it enabled everyone, that might be true. But at the same time, a lot of people have been ripped off over the years. While the barrier to entry in the industry has lowered, so has the quality. And so you do, again, like the problems that Matt Mullenweg is talking about with regards to things like WP Engine and various that ecosystem of stripped down to basically nothing features in the repo, only to just force you, but you're basically forced to buy the commercial version of the plugin. Like that's a real fucking problem. in the WordPress community. Now, ACF wasn't necessarily like that. ACF did have tremendous value, but Jetpack does the same thing, right? You know, we're going to give you this feature. We're going to force this feature. You're going to have to write code to make sure that that feature doesn't annoy you the whole time and bloat your website. Like the AI thing in Jetpack, I have to write code to turn it off. It's like, okay, well, most people don't know how to do that. But they're always on the upsell. It's like fucking, are there any user experience people in this business anymore? They're always just trying to get their slice of the market, and with no consideration for the user experience, no consideration for even interoperability between plugins. Like it is a dog's breakfast, and I'm surprised that 40% of the web runs on it, because honestly, it's not that great unless, you know, like, yes, the vanilla I think we idealize the WordPress ecosystem because it is an example of something that's quite successful. WordPress core itself is, it struggles with sort of technical debt and all of the things that go with having software that's that old, right? But like, I think people are romanticizing this whole WordPress repo to begin with, and that it was not, that it did, I think it needed a shock. I think this battle was needed. Because there is something wrong about it. Like I said this 2 years ago, it's becoming Joomla. It's becoming shit. Like if you were around for, the sort of I mean, I know Joomla is still around and some people like ride or die with it, but you know what I'm talking about, which is just shitty plugins that are just terrible UX. They just, anyway, it drives me nuts. Anyway. But I do hope that any further project that anyone works on doesn't have the ability to basically run an ad through the repo where you're running a light version of a plugin that is effectively a shell that basically, like, this is an exploit of the WordPress ecosystem, like the repo, right? Which is this problem of, the one that I can think of is the uncanny automator. There's a few of them like that where they basically, you have no functionality that anyone would want to use, and anything that you do want to use is behind a premium subscription, right? That stuff adds up. But like, I'd rather, I don't like the use of the repo for that, which is that, giving the shell light version of a plugin, and but actually does nothing other than sell you a commercial plugin. I think that is misleading, and I think that is a problem within the WordPress ecosystem, right? I think it's dog shit. Okay, I tried to build something on top of WordPress using BuddyBoss, right? And BuddyBoss is a fork of BuddyPress, right? And it's a good product. Like I don't have a problem with BuddyBoss, but it really does show like how you buy one plugin and you end up having to install easily like probably 40 plugins to get even remotely what you need or want. Like you could, obviously you could code it, right? Now I prefer to code it if I can, but that carries its own hassles and risk and cost and all that sort of stuff. But something like BuddyBoss, it's like selling up to like so let's just say you want to build like a basic site with some social features, a little bit of an LMS, and some basic e-commerce features, right? That's easily, you're looking at a couple of grand a year straight away, which again is fine. It's still cheaper than having someone build it bespoke, but you're going to end up with garbage. Okay, it ends up looking like shit. It's like, and it's bloated, and even then, it doesn't do 100% of what you want. So you may as well just build it from scratch. So I think that the way that people are talking about WordPress is they're kind of glossing over some of the problems with it in the beginning, right? Not in the beginning, the problems that have emerged over time. And I think that let's not everyone's saying, WordPress agencies who are not talking about it awful quiet right now. And it's like, well, no, because most of them don't care. They'll just move to the next thing and sell whatever's most profitable. Like, that's the thing that it's like, I'm watching this, obviously because I saw it happening in real time, but you've kind of got that lag of people who are suddenly like, they've got a stance on it. And it's like the most fence-sitting thing you could ever imagine. And it's basically like, well, we like both people. I'm going to basically go with whoever is most profitable for me, but I'm still going to suckhole all of them. And it's like, no, they make no position. And then they basically explain it to everyone else. Like, it's like, no, fuck off. Like, oh my God, I've seen these a lot of these comments from agency people, particularly, who are basically like, oh, here's my take that isn't a take. It's like, okay, thank you for that. All right, what's your advice? Like, I actually sit there and I go, no, there's problems with WordPress. I think it's worth considering whether you move or not. In reality, some are going to stay on WP Engine. I'm not doing new builds anymore. But if I was doing new builds, I probably wouldn't be building on WordPress now anyway, because WordPress is not fit for purpose, and it hasn't been for some time anyway. This would just be the kick in the guts that we need, or maybe the kick in the pants that we need to actually justify switching frameworks anyway. If you are, it used to be, I would have said, I mean, I would have said 6 months ago, if you'd asked me, whether you should set up a Substack, I would have said no. I would have said set up a WordPress site. You can do it yourself. But now there's other alternatives such as Ghost. Okay, so Ghost is basically out of the box great CMS. Like, yes, it is a hosted solution, but they have an open source version of it that you can download and install and implement yourself. Again, same thing with WordPress.org. They've got a hosted solution and they've got their software. But Ghost is open source, so I've got a Ghost installed, and I just couldn't be bothered migrating. Again, it depends on whether if it's a new build, set up Ghost. If you're thinking about migrating away, I think it's premature to decide to do that. I think you're better off just sticking with WordPress. Your use case depends on, again, if you're focused on your actual clients and not just on you. And what your workflow looks like. Most mature agencies are going to have clients on lots of different platforms and hosting environments and everything anyway, because it depends on them. If you're just a WordPress agency, hosting on WP Engine, just stick with WP Engine. I don't see the problem. The only red flag that I'd have with them is what the future of WooCommerce and the WooCommerce ecosystem. If you've got a WooCommerce website on WP Engine, that would be a concern for me. But otherwise, stay put. Like, they're handling it. They're ensuring continuity as best as they can. And honestly, learn to code. Learn to code so you can get the gaps. Don't just be a plugin assembler and think that that's good enough for being an agency that sells services. Upskill. Like, seriously, like that. And that's the thing that I think gets lost in all of this, which is that people shouldn't be so dependent on plugins anyway. The dependence on and selling the service. So if you're selling WordPress services and you cannot code and you are reliant on installing plugins, then you shouldn't be in business, because you actually end up creating dog shit websites that people like us have had to fix over the years. Okay. The plugin ecosystem is useful. Yes, it's great. However, it was designed for people to, DIY their website, and, it was designed for people to be able to build their own website, and maybe, freelancers and that sort of stuff. It was not designed for people to be selling websites at $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a pop, only to just be buying dev licenses of plugins that overlap and are a dog's breakfast and skimming off the top. Like, that's not web development. That's just, I have no time for that kind of stuff, and I've seen it way too many times in the industry. And again, it's not unique to WordPress. I've seen it with Sitefinity. I've seen it with all that stuff, which is just garbage work, passing itself off as as web development, which it isn't. It's just assembly. So I feel differently about those sorts of things anyway. Part of the reason I got out of the industry is because I felt we couldn't compete. Because we actually cared about what we put out and we actually cared about the output. And that became increasingly hard to bear when we were, because people would come to me for audits and fixes and rescue jobs, and they'd be out of money by the time they came to us, but they'd have spent $85,000 on this shitty fucking Sitefinity agency or, this plug-inception WordPress agency, but they'd come to me when it got to court and wanted a report on how shit it was. That's what they came to us for. And I just went, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep selling this shitty crap. And that is a problem in WordPress, particularly because anyone can just upload a shitty plugin that, and again, rethink your strategy, again, I'm not saying that the ACF thing is not a shitty thing for them to do. Okay, I'm not saying that's not shit. But it does require you to zoom out at least a little bit and think about how dependent you are on a third party with your business in general, okay? It makes you vulnerable. The more that you put, I think I went through this with Crock-a-Block as well because of the war in Ukraine, right? They're based in Ukraine. You have to have a plan. What happens? Again, you can't be sitting there thinking I shouldn't be thinking about this because it's not politically appropriate to think so. So no, what happens if they disappear? I've got to, you need that sort of plan. You can't be dependent on them. You need to always, the difference between running a real business and a hobby is that you are considering all of these risks to begin with. Okay. Now I got out of the business because I saw that this was just going to shit, and it was a lot of this stuff with the GPL. There's this dog shit, dog's breakfast plug-in, fucking everything costing $100 a year, but they make it sound cheap. I mean, the WooCommerce marketplace, fuck me. You can't even build again, you could code it, but I'm saying for your average WooCommerce person, I want to share it to Instagram, $100 a year, please. Oh, I want subscriptions, $200 a year, please. Oh, memberships, $200 a year, please. It all adds up. And again, I know that development costs money and time. Okay. I get that. If anything, I believe that, developers should be paid more and enough, but it's not going to the developer. It's going to the people who hire the offshore developers and the poorly coded. They hire the cheapest. They hire juniors to do it, and they skim off the top. It is again back to capitalism, which is that rentiers are the problem in this industry across the board. It's not just. At least Matt Mullenweg built the core, or forked. Well, he didn't actually, he forked it, but I'm saying at least he did put some labor in. A lot of this stuff is just the inherent problem with the GPL is that it leaves itself vulnerable to capitalists who are exploiting developers and, exploiting, again, like this, again, it's not a problem with offshore labor generally, right? I'm saying this race to the bottom with the industry for the cheapest developers that are like $5 an hour. It's like, no, I charge fucking $270 an hour. When we were an agency, we were charging we were charging a fortune because, that's what we're worth because it was better. And over time that got squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed to the point where people were arcing up at even $100 an hour. And because they thought that they could just do it with Wix and they could do it with, the industry has always gone in this direction. So WordPress, this whole WordPress drama is just another symptom of that, right? It is just another symptom of something that is endemic to the fact that the GPL is incompatible with capitalism because capitalists will always take advantage of the people who are wanting to share and share alike. Okay, that is how it's going to be. Now, WP Engine, yes, absolutely, they've exploited it too. The substantive criticism that Matt Mullenweg has of WP Engine and its ilk is legitimate, but so is Automatic. He's got some standing because he at least drove the project forward, but at the same time, his I think we've got to remember that the WordPress community has been exploited for many, many years by people who are not coders. People just passing on plugins and setting up an agency when they can't even code, assembling plugins, making life harder for everyone else, and making a fuck ton of money, and then leaving the people who are good faith and are nice and are client-centered and do care about their clients and what's best for their clients rather than what's best for themselves. They're left out having to compete in a space where it's just enshittified beyond recognition. And I think that learning, if there's one thing that we have to keep fighting for for the open source movement, it is for a balance between, making sure that those who genuinely believe in open source and those who are going to exploit it, making sure that is clearer. Because, again, I've wandered off on a tangent, but I'm just saying, I think that it's not the end of the world. Okay, stick with WP Engine. They'll be fine. If you're hosted there, I'm not going to move, mostly because, they seem to have it handled for now. It's stable. It's staying put. If Automatic provides a service that, you like and you're fine with, then, and it suits and that's what your client needs, then go with them. If you want to self-host and you want to go to a different repo, then do that. If you want to, I don't understand. It's not a big deal. Okay. Again, a lot of the drama around it at the end of the day doesn't really have massive implications for the business, because people are going to do what they're going to do. And if you're client focused, then you'll do what's best for your client. And if that involves going to, the next build being on a different CMS, then fine. Or you just find a way to continue with WP Engine, or you stay with Automatic, or you move slowly away from WooCommerce because you think that marketplace might have some risk attached to it, so you move away from it. And if you're a developer who sort of hitched your wagon to WordPress, then pick a side and keep developing there. That ecosystem will grow, right? That's how open source has always worked and how it will continue to work, right? I think it's, as much as it's like a big drama and obviously the behavior is terrible and all of that sort of stuff, anyone who called me asking for my advice would be, well, okay, what's the use case? Where are you at now? Is it a new build? Is it not? Because I wouldn't be recommending WordPress for new builds anyway, really, because it's really not, unless, because I've never been that kind of shop. Like some shops just set up a WordPress multi-site and sell templates and stuff, and they just try to shoehorn the client into their system rather than the other way around anyway. And I have a problem with that, right? But because I've always been bespoke, so it's a bit different. So I always, it's, yeah. But if someone was to approach me right now, I'd say, well, if you want to, don't set up Substack, set up Ghost, go to Ghost Pro, set that up there. But you're going to have to learn the templating language, which is fine, or pay for it. God forbid you actually pay for a web developer or a designer to do your work for you. God forbid. And if it's if it's a new build, go with Ghost. If it's you're just setting up, if it's if you're on self-hosted WordPress.org, think about which repo you're on. But obviously, you might want to look at hiring a developer. But at the end of the day, you still own your website at the current version. You can turn off auto updates and just freeze it and have someone just do security patches as needed. There's no need. You don't have to always update either, unless it's a security update. I know a lot of places that sort of froze at WordPress 5 because they didn't want the Gutenberg stuff, right? You had various other people who've done lots of different things. They stay with the WordPress version that they're happy with, and then they take out the stuff that they don't want, and then they build from there. So there's lots of different ways to go. You don't always have to update to the newest thing, as long as it's doing what you set out to do with it, and it's just set and forget, then there's no problem. Okay. But if you're on WooCommerce on WP Engine, I'd be concerned, especially if you're buying premium plugins through WordPress. Let me have a drink. Get my Stanley cup. If you are, if you have like subscriptions and stuff, like subscriptions and memberships and sort of that WooCommerce.com stack, then I'd be worried that you might end up blocked somehow. I don't know. I'd think about maybe moving to self-host in that instance. If you are reliant on Jetpack and WooCommerce, I think that it might be good for you to to move to either self-host or dare I say WordPress, okay? Or, and stay. It's not going to die. Like, the project's not going to die. It's not over, okay? Now, there might be some security issues. Like, this is going to be, it's going to be risky, mostly because there's always a new vulnerability with WordPress. But just install a good security plugin and you should be okay, okay? But yeah, it's I think people tend to overstate, like anything, like the thing happening in front of their face is the most important thing that's happening. And, everyone must freak out, and then it just sort of fizzles out, and then they move on to the next thing, because apparently we've got no object permanence anymore. And apparently nobody knows how open source works. I mean, being part of open source, it's like if you've been an activist in anything, if you work with people that care, working with people that care involves arguments and splits. And if you're in politics at all, or politically organized, that like it's just part of being left wing, which is to split over stupid shit all the time. And the open source movement's no different, really, right? It's a side effect of having people care. And you've got to be able to manage that and calm people down and say, look, okay, pragmatically, like, how does it affect your business? The reason why agencies aren't up in arms about it is because they're probably just sitting there watching and going, okay, well, what do we do for this client, this client, this client? Most agencies are probably on a combination of both WP Engine and WordPress.com, and self-host. It depends. Like, if they've got more than, say, 10 clients, those 10 clients are probably on different hosting. If you're a half-decent agency that listens to clients and does what your clients need, then you're probably on different environments anyway, and you're probably just going to stay put. Being put in a position where you cannot be affiliated with WP Engine to log into the repo, like, obviously that's childish. And I think that there'll be some sort of injunction soon on that. Like, they can't do that. Like, that's silly. Just say you have no affiliation and log in. Who gives a shit? Just refuse to be involved. Okay. But at the same time, like, pay for web development then. Pay for someone who does know. Okay. Again, you own your website. People have had it too good for too long, if I'm honest with you. I think that they just sort of tick along and, they sell things that they don't necessarily understand, like how it works under the hood. Take the time to learn how stuff works under the hood. You can actually just code custom fields and custom post types into a plugin yourself. It's not that difficult. WordPress has that functionality, right? I mean, it's limited, but still, you can actually do this, right? I prefer Jet Engine personally, but but again, I would still, if that disappeared, I'd still be able to figure it out with code if I needed to, right? Like WooCommerce, all of the plugins for WooCommerce that they're selling you, most of them can be coded because the hooks and everything and the templating and all that sort of stuff, it exists in core. You've just got to, tap into it. Like the WooCommerce brands, like that's just a custom post type with like a custom taxonomy. It's nothing fancy, right? You just got to know what you're doing. But, you know, it's just like, you know, like I'm just people again, it's just content for people, right? And it's funny because, you know, I've gathered up a bunch of new followers and it's like, I don't, I'm going to lose 50 of them pretty quickly because it's, well, first of all, because I misspoke at the beginning of a stream saying Indians when I didn't mean Indians. I meant the archetype of offshore. So that's already fucking burned some bridges. I didn't mean it the way that it came out. I always take a while to warm up. I shouldn't have opened with that. But it is an ongoing problem of quality and, you know, all that sort of stuff. But anyway, but like people are being, again, people are going to spurg out over whatever. Okay, that's fine. But I can tell that it's only because they're sitting there and they're only seeing 24/7 what's happening on that on their feed. Like the second I started talking about this stuff, it was just all of the tweets all of the time. You like this? I was like, yeah, but I like other things too. It's like it's not my only thing, and I can tell when people are only reacting to the stuff that's in front of their face and not actually like getting any real proportion out of this. Like most agencies aren't saying much because they're just busy solving the problem and talking to their clients and figuring out with their clients collaboratively what the way forward is. Okay. Honestly, I think that, yeah, I don't know. That's just me. Like I have more free time than most because I'm like not in the business anymore. But, you know, I think most people are just getting on with it and they're mostly sick of WordPress anyway. Like my husband's like in his job, like they're mostly out of WordPress anyway. They're not recommending it for new builds. They're doing, you know, custom stuff. Like he recommends, I think he went with Astro at his previous job. And at the moment they're sort of working in a few different things, some WordPress, but you know, like again, the good agencies are platform agnostic anyway, and they'll probably this is just part of the life cycle, which is, you know, maybe thinking about with the next redesign rather than it being a redesign, being a rebuild in something else that's, you know, or forking it themselves. Like a lot of agencies are actually just working with their own forked version of WordPress anyway. Like that's the thing I think that a lot of people don't understand is that most agencies that are worth anything are usually a few versions behind anyway and are operating effectively. Whether they call it that or not, they're working effectively with their own forks of the software anyway. Because, you know, most places do have a development cycle and an update cycle, and they're not just sitting there, you know, hitting auto update because that carries risk to it, right? So again, it depends on, I think that getting a sense of proportion about this is important. Like I think because I've only got a few clients that are just like they're legacy clients now and my own website and a few other bits and pieces and side projects. But I have been an enterprise agency. I have that sort of, you know, I've been a freelancer and yeah, in freelance land, everything is the whole world because that's your tool and that's like the end of the world. But, you know, when you're actually operating at a bigger scale with more diverse clients, it's not really the end of the world. Okay. It's not, just pick a side, pick a side if you have to. Otherwise, don't. Just keep going on with your business. First of all, most people aren't on social media talking about this. You know, a lot of it is content for people or that people are seeing an opportunity. Okay. Like I said, like I was joking again, it comes across as racist and I don't mean it that way, but it's just like you've got a week before someone's just selling their own, like we've had this problem with white labeling WordPress anyway, right? People are white labeling that shit anyway. And it's like you got 2 weeks before like some dodgy offshore company is like rebranding WordPress as its own thing. And it's like, we are the fork, and it's like they're going to be the most garbage bullshit that's ever come out of it. And it's like, yeah, it's going to happen. I don't know. I can't remember if those words I don't know if those words were coherent. They weren't. I'm so tired today. Anyway. Yeah, so the WordPress thing, I'm just waffling, but Honestly, I don't really have much to say about it outside of just chill. Don't be a fucking like. There's a few that are just getting into stalker territory at this point, and like I understand that like it's very exciting and it's very interesting, and like he's behaving very badly, all of that stuff. But I think I'm in a unique position because I'm studying tech law, and I live in a country where defamation law is, a lot tighter than the United States. We don't have a freedom of speech defense, so it's a little bit different. But we're also subjected to things like the Online Safety Act and that sort of stuff, right? And also, like, if I, get any kind of red mark on my record, that's going to make it very, very difficult for me to practice as a lawyer. And so I'm always thinking about how things look from that perspective. Okay? I try to be the change I want to see. And, some people are looking a little bit cyber stalky at this point. Like I did joke about his mum, and that felt a bit icky. I mean, it was funny. Doesn't mean it's not funny, but I can tell that the bullying and the drama gets high engagement. Like I can tell that it gets engagement. I know that it gets engagement. And the more level-headed stuff doesn't, never has. And so that's a red flag to me, right? And it's like, not that I'm not supportive. It's not that I don't want to, I'm happy to help. Like anyone who wants to take action or use me as a resource or wants my advice or anything like that. But, some people are looking a little bit stalkery at this point. And like also, every time I pick up new followers, my God, everyone's got to here we go. I've got to re-educate people on how don't tell me what words I can use and can't use. It's not going to go well for you. First of all, I'm not American. I'm Australian. We don't have that thing here. You can't bully me into not saying things. Okay. Second of all, it's not all about you. Third of all, like you're on X.com, the everything app. Okay. It's not a kindergarten. Grow up. Who cares? Okay. When people say other people might be offended by that word. No, you're offended. Go away. I don't care. Okay. And I get pissed off because people I don't understand the mindset of the person who goes, did you know, person who's been on the internet longer than I've been alive, did you know that some people find this word offensive? No, I hadn't heard it before. Somehow I've spent 30 years online studying the internet, being on the internet, writing snark on the internet when you were a baby, going through all of this stuff, doing a law degree to study tech law, and I had no idea that people found that word offensive. I absolutely, you are the first person to let me know. I don't know what people get out of it. We know. And I choose to use it anyway because I've made a calculation that is different to yours. And so stop being retarded then. Okay. Also, I've got an autistic family. Okay. Context matters. I have to teach my kids that context matters. And fuck off. Who do you think you are? Oh my God. Anyway, I'm so sick of this shit. It's like 2017 called. They want their thought policing back. No, go away. Move on. Be a grown up. Go hang out in a beanbag at the children's section of the library if you want to only hear fucking words. Go watch Sesame Street. Okay? I'm a grown up. The context was clear. I'm using a word that I'm fine with. So go away. Anyway, I just got that off my chest. I'm so sick of this bullshit. And if you have a problem with it, then that's fine. Okay? But I've got other things to say that are of value, and I misspeak because live streams, like especially when I haven't streamed for a while, like the open of this live stream sounded like incredible because I was muddling my thoughts. And if you know, you know. If you're in the business, you know what the fuck I mean and what I'm talking about. And if you've ever run a project that's complex and utilizes these types of offshore agencies, you'll know what I mean. So nitpick all you want. I don't give a shit, okay? But yeah, so you really don't have to take a side in this thing. Like his behavior is shocking, boneheaded. absolutely just counterproductive in every way. But you don't, at the end of the day, if you've got clients to serve, it doesn't matter. Okay, you just like whatever. If you can code, fork it yourself. Just say, oh well, I'm forking it, and I'll just manually set up a multi-site, manage it yourself, and like fork it. Who cares? Get on with your business, But that's just me. Okay, I'm again, as interesting as this is, and fun as it is, and all that sort of stuff. It's like people just always go way too far with it. Build a cult around it. Here we go with the fandom and anti-fandom dynamics that is always present in every fucking thing that we do. And it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, I've got other things I want to talk about, like X's block button. Who cares? Again, who cares? All right, the block button, first of all, is going to have to comply with the app stores. So he will be able to argue that it basically is the same functionality. So the block button's not going away as such. It just doesn't do anything, because you can just open a new private window and see whatever tweets on a public account anyway. They're still going to screenshot it. They're still going to see you. It has the exact same effect. What they're doing from a product point of view, remember, other points of view, other people exist, and there's a different perspective on things, which is from a product point of view, consolidating mute and block functions to, is a good idea. So you can't reply, you can't interact, but you can, they can still see it, but they can see it anyway. So there's no point. Mate, if you don't want people to see your accounts, if you don't want people to see your tweets, protect your tweets. That's what it's there for. They're just consolidating the features because, again, I'm surprised when developers have a problem with things like this, where with Twitter features and stuff, where it makes sense from a business point of view to consolidate. If it's an inefficient use of resources, and they're better off just having, engineering resources working on single functionality rather than mute, which doesn't fucking work 50% of the time, and then block, and then all of these other things, rolling that into better, stronger tools for you to control who can and can't see your shit. But at the end of the day, people just log out and screenshot you. It doesn't change anything. So anyway, and he has to comply with EU guidelines as well as the App Store and Google Play guidelines, and it does. So like they can't interact with you. I don't understand why people are fucking. Oh my God, I'm just so sick of the stupid. I'm so sick of stupid. Anyway. Anyway, that's me. I'm going to go. I've been streaming for an hour. That's too long. I got shit to do. My husband's home tonight and I want to get the house ready and stuff for him. Because I was going to, not that I have to get the house ready for him. I'm just saying that I wanted to do some stuff and make it all like nice and make some stuff and whatever. So, but yeah, I'll be back like soon. I got to get back into the habit, but I am absolutely pumped. I'm just, I'm smashed with law school and stuff. Like even this stream was waffly mess bullshit. But which, I should probably remove because it's probably come across as horribly racist when I didn't mean it to. I didn't mean it to be. I love you. I love you all. I'm just saying. Offshore shit. Cheap offshore labor is shit. And it's not because of the individuals involved. It's a structural thing. The cultural, because people underestimate how different people are. Just like Americans underestimate how we're different to them and don't have a problem with certain fucking words and think their word policing is fucking annoying. It's the same thing. Anyway, there's a cultural gap that affects things. And people keep pretending that we're all Americans. We're all the most polite and annoying of Americans. No, you're annoying. Go away. Stop it. Let us live our lives. Relax. It's not the end of the world. And also, not everything is a lawsuit. Okay? Resolve shit without it. Okay? Lawsuits should be a last... As cool as lawsuits are, because people make money, it's like, not everything is a fucking lawsuit. My God. Anyway, I'm going to go. I love you. Thank you for your precious life seconds. All that stuff. I'm going to go. What else? Where's the thing? No, fuck it. I'm going to go. All right. Bye.